Right, so I want to talk about what to expect for 2025. Okay. So for 2025, we have some major developments happening, okay? We have Neptune moving into Aries, we have Saturn moving into Aries, we have Jupiter moving into Cancer, we have Uranus moving into Gemini, and we also in a couple 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever, January 11th, the nodes move. Well, the North Node moves into Pisces, the South Node moves into Virgo. So I'm going to talk about what to expect based on your sign, we always do it this way, sun and rising. The rising sign will, of course, be helpful because it helps you see like where those planets are going to show up in your chart. But again, we can also talk on an energetic level. If you're a person who does not know your rising sign, still paying attention to these themes. Because, for example, if we're talking about in March, Neptune moving into Aries, that means that if your sun is at a low degree Aries, that's going to be creating a direct conjunct to Neptune in Aries. So even if you don't know your rising sign, you still know the degree of your sun because the sun only moves like 1 degree per day. So you still can get value from this video. So let's start with the Aries risings, okay? Some exciting transits happen for Aries, at least for part of the year. So Neptune and Saturn go into Aries, okay? And we're looking at that now temporarily until they shift back. Again, I have the information below of the exact transit time. But the beautiful thing about it is it's going in your first house. And so the first house of self, of your assertion of who you are, identity. There's opportunities, Aries, for things not to just be about what you want and what you have in front of you, but starting to think a little bit more about the long term. Okay, Saturn in Aries requires, in general, as a placement, the development of self, growing up, maturing, but going on your own journey to do so. Neptune in Aries is idealizing your dream, what you want for yourself, thinking first house also in terms of body image, in terms of what you look like, and really having these kind of more personal goals that allow for you to shift and change into something that you think is going to help you long term. So with the first house having these planets that are very contrasting, right? Contrasting planets. You have the planet of reality, harshness, Saturn, and the planet of dreams and idealism and, hopes and inspiration, Neptune. But together it means things that you have wanted for yourself that maybe you have been distracted because of other things can come to better, you can come to a better understanding of the way in which you want to show up in the world. So it's not just about this pure instinct of what you want in the moment, but you're starting to think a little bit more, you're thinking in you're broader, you're thinking more vastly through Neptune, but you're also thinking through Saturn of how is what I'm doing helping me mature and become the person I want to be, right? How do I tap to the things I've always wanted to be but maybe I've been so distracted by trying to be and do everything, and I've been living on this idea of needing adventure, needing to do things in a rush. But now there's an opportunity for me to do things in a way that still excite me, but ground me as well, and also help me tap into what I really truly want and need. You're also going to see here you have Uranus moving into your third house. Uranus and Gemini, your third house. That's July, and it's temporary because then it moves back in November to Taurus. But it can mean change in terms of ideas, change in terms of information systems, changing the way in which you communicate. There can be disruption in communication patterns. There can be a shift in who you communicate with, how you communicate. Maybe you will take on new forms of communication. You might be a person where you usually are not a phone person, but you just start hopping on the phone more to talk to people because you develop a certain friendship or relationship with someone. There's also sibling energy in the third house, and Gemini we know is associated with the third house. So there also can be some sibling energy, especially in July, because Venus will also be in the third house, your third house in Gemini around that time at the end of the month. So with that, it can be these concepts around family, siblings, reuniting with siblings, or having some sort of communication with people that are from your immediate surroundings, okay? Uranus means disruption though as well. So it can be also disrupting certain patterns, certain thought patterns that you have, getting new information that kind of radicalizes your views on certain things. Jupiter being in Cancer in the fourth house denotes this idea of something dealing with openness, expansion of the family, or maybe having more opportunities to be around family members, mending certain types of bonds that have been broken, welcoming additional types of relationships in your life. We talk about Jupiter in terms of abundance and expansion. Cancer, we know, is related to this idea of nurturing something of home. So Jupiter being there can be really helpful for the family dynamic. That's more of a positive indicator for people with this energy. Of course, at some point it will square your ascendant. So it can mean sometimes also having to learn how to pour in some energy into the people that are in your immediate family or people that you care and love. And sometimes pausing on this need to like, okay, I'm by myself, I'm independent, I don't need to be a part of something because, people are going to come with me or not come with me, the type of energy that Aries can sometimes have. Really grounding yourself in the relationships that you have with people, nourishing and nurturing those types of communications and connections can be helpful. You are, interestingly enough, you already know Pluto is in Aquarius in your 11th house right now. Transformation and change in terms of the dynamics of your friendships, of your associations. This is a pivotal time for you. Whatever it is that you identify with, is something that you're going to notice becomes a theme for the next decade or more, because we're dealing with actually 2 decades of Pluto in Aquarius. Pluto is going to be in Aquarius until like 2043, 2044, something like that. So Pluto being in Aquarius in the 11th house for you is about these transformational changes. Nothing happens overnight. Pluto is not an overnight planet, as you know, but with Pluto being in that 11th house, it can deal with, coming to terms with the ways in which your community, the people around you, change and shift and impact your ideology, impact what you think and what you believe, and really being mindful of the types of communities that you are a part of, because Pluto, we know, can be obsessive. Pluto, we know, can be traumatizing sometimes. Pluto can also help us, start all over and build something better, but just keeping that in mind. But again, the benefit of that is going to be, again, the ideology, who you're around, especially next year in 2025, around that time when Uranus makes that direct trine to Pluto. So it's connecting your 3rd and your 11th house. It's communication, the people that you're around, associations, ideas, gravitating towards certain belief systems that you want to have, or different ideas that you take on because of the people that you're around. So really influential people in your life during this time. I know you're very much, I'm independent, I'm Aries. And it doesn't mean all Aries are like that. Plenty of Aries have, close friends that people in their lives or a partner that influences them. But Aries, you do have to take a little bit more caution or more awareness of the ways in which you can influence people in terms of thought, but you're also influenced as well. Okay, and that helps you make those connections with people that your opposite sign Libra can sometimes do a little bit more effortlessly. North Node is in Pisces in the 12th house, for, South Node in Virgo. So for a lot of you, it is around this idea of acceptance and understanding of the things that you cannot change. It is about understanding where peace is in existence in your life, finding a mode in which you feel like you are more, you're evolving because you are aware of there's more beyond the things that you have to do. You have like some goals that are, how do I say this? I'm trying to figure out the words to say this. Having a Pisces node, having a North Node in Pisces transit to your 12th house can totally, for some people, be about this aligning yourself with your higher self's goals. And the thing that's crazy about that is you don't control that. We do not control the spirit realm. We do not control all the things that have to happen in our lives. Some of those things just have to happen. And of course, manifestation is a part of it, where we are directing our energy to what we want, but we also understand that manifestation doesn't mean everything doesn't mean you're still not going to have things that come up. Your South Node being in Virgo is about the work that you've already done. Like, you have these systems and routines that you likely have done that really help support you in terms of the physical, the day-to-day life, the day-to-day things that you do. But you're learning, like, there's going to be a greater sense of awareness of the ways in which you can accomplish things that aren't tangible. Really erring to that and trusting yourself in terms of allowing yourself to gain a greater sense of listening to yourself. The 12th house is a house that can be quite isolating. But with Pisces, it's like there's a need to isolate yourself from the things that you have to do. That's Virgo South Node. That is work. That is effort, right? There's things you have to do. There's always going to be things we have to do. But with the Pisces North Node transiting your 12th house, it's also this, you have the ability to soak in what is going on around you. You have the ability to learn lessons that aren't that don't give you instant gratification. You know, Aries can be about instant gratification. So can any of the fire signs. Instant gratification. I want it now. But Pisces North Node is not about that. So there is this learning of like, one, not focusing so much on instant gratification, but also through the sixth house. It's like the sixth house South Node energy was about organization, right? Tasks and responsibility. But now this North Node in Pisces, there's a responsibility to your higher self. There's a responsibility to listen to yourself. There's responsibility to, you know, disconnect from the things that are, I think it's about like transcending, you know, a lot of it like transcending as well past the things that are required of you, expected of you, or transcending past the things that are exciting, to do the things that are meaningful and really allowing yourself to experience that and experience meaningful moments that can't be. Also, North Node in Pisces, also it's about this allowing yourself to experience meaningful moments. You know, there's the tangible world. You have Capricorn in your 10th house. There is this idea of tangible. Aries risings have the earth signs in the money houses, you know, or the, you know, the house that deal with finances, 2nd, 6, and 10. But so you're used to this idea of like, I need something tangible. I need something that is physical. But the North Node in Pisces is this reminder of how you can gain and get things that are transcend the physical. It transcends a reward. It transcends something that is something that we can get, because there's an inner type of reward that we can get as well when we're in tune with ourselves and really allow those meaningful experiences to create those meaningful experiences to carry into our spiritual mission here and why we're here and what we're here to do. And if you're watching this video, you have to have some type of spiritual interest, probably in some way, shape, or form. So that's a very beautiful placement to have North Node transiting Pisces. Now, again, in that 12th house for you, that does not mean you're becoming a Pisces, but it means that there's some lesson and more enlightenment that you have in store. So for Taurus, they're into Gemini in July. So you got a little bit of time, right? But when Uranus moves into Gemini for you Taurus rising people, Taurus, it's going to be about moving into the 2nd house. So about like trying something new, but understanding how things currently fit in your life. So it's not about abandoning your principles, your values, your morals, but it's about reinvesting in yourself and coming up with some new ideas to really breathe life into things. You know, a lot of things that you may value may have an expiration date. So really understanding that about yourself. Jupiter is going to move into Cancer. When Jupiter moves into Cancer, it's going to be moving into your 3rd house. So connecting again with people who are from your past, who are from your hometown, your neighborhood, but maybe coming back, some of you, to a space where there's a lot of learning, there's a lot of wisdom. You know, I think of people who might be on their journey in terms of like they might be in higher learning, might be in college, but you graduate and then you end up coming back home. And you know, thinking about Jupiter is about expansion. How you're here, you can bring back to people. You're here to reach certain people. You know, Jupiter in Cancer, 3rd house is also, remember, this is the house of siblings. There could be a lot of sibling energy happening, or people that are close to you that you grew up with, cousins, things like that could be energy that really stands out during this time for you. Now, in terms of Saturn and Neptune, which we know will be, you know, moving into Aries temporarily, then moving back into Pisces, and, you know, doing that dance that we know planets do until they settle more long term into the sign they're going to be in for an extended period of time. Now, talking whole signs here, Taurus, in your 12th house is Saturn and Neptune. Neptune rules the 12th house. Saturn is in its joy in the 12th house traditionally, but it's in the signs of Aries, again, until it moves. So the sign of Aries represents this self journey. There's a lot of, for Taurus people, there's a journey that you may be going on. You are in search of your authentic self, and the energy around you can seem a little chaotic. You have Pluto and Aquarius in your 10th house of career. And so for Taurus, I think 2025 it's a lot of energy. It's a lot of change happening around you that you have to then find where you fit in accordance with that change. Also because the North Node is in Pisces in your 11th house of circles, belonging to something. Finding people that you are meant to be around, you know, and that could be based on shifts in your lifestyle, shifts in things that happen around you. But that South Node in Virgo in the 5th house, which is more concentrated on this kind of past idea of like really centralizing yourself into the things that you are really good at, the things that you are committed to doing, the things that are habits, the things that are, you know, more service oriented, things you have to do. But now you have the North Node in the 11th house transiting. And so again, I don't think when I talk about nodes, your own north node is always going to be the most important. But when a node travels, it adds an extra layer to the things that you are currently, experiencing. And so for Taurus, it is a shift. There's a lot of things happening around you. There's a lot of change, and you're going to have to adapt to that, but still find a way to be your authentic self. Gemini. Okay, so for Gemini, there is a lot of exciting movement happening for you, especially when we look at the fact that Uranus, we know, is going to move out of Taurus, which it has been in for a very long time for us, and it's going to move into the sign of Gemini. And so for Gemini, change and evolving and experimentation with your appearance is possible with the Gemini risings, because Uranus in Gemini is about radical change. It's about intercepting ideas. And so for some Gemini people, it can be having a new consciousness, a new understanding, a new awareness of who you are, learning more about how you want to present, learning more about the origins of some of the things. Some people may say, I don't want to wear that anymore because that doesn't represent me. I learned that, this style means this, or I've learned that I don't want to be like this, So really, Uranus and Gemini inspired by ideology, inspired by things you read, inspired by things that are kind of, centralized in terms of concepts and ideas and information. So Uranus being in your first house, Gemini rising, can definitely represent some type of change in your appearance, experimentation with your appearance, also just identity and really experimenting with your identity. And for some people, it doesn't mean, if you're younger, obviously you might be already be doing that, right? Like, who am I, in comparison to my family and my friends. But if you're someone that's older, it could be, you are in a different phase of your life, especially people who are around 42 years old. You might be going through the Uranus opposition, right? That is when at 42 years old, right? Uranus goes back and it opposes your natal Uranus. So for a lot of people that are Gemini risings around 42, right? 42, you can look up directly the degrees of your Uranus placement, obviously in the opposition, but that is going to be something that could be really important for a lot of you. And so any person that has Uranus in Sagittarius at a low degree, once Uranus moves into Gemini, that is going to be your Uranus opposition experience. And so for some people, it's just a shift in terms of understanding yourself. You reevaluate your life and where you are and all the things that you've done. Unlike a Saturn return, Uranus means you are experimenting. It's unexpected things. Saturn was about learning responsibility. Uranus is how do you learn to adapt to change? Okay. And so with a lot of you also, Jupiter being in Cancer in your second house, Gemini rising, it could also be abundance, money, experiences that knowledge bestowed on you, learning from somebody how to better manage your money, being given money. If you deal with Cancer energy, it could deal with feminine energy, mother, or something dealing with the feminine. And so for Jupiter in Cancer, it can also be a great opportunity for you to look into the things you want to nurture. How are you pouring into your money? How are you pouring into the things that you've experienced? How do you now make sure that they're lucrative for you? So Jupiter being your second house, of course, for anybody can be a beneficial time. Pluto in Aquarius, though, is in your ninth house, and you already know that. Pluto in Aquarius in your ninth house. This is about, radical ideology, really, changing and transforming your belief system. That does not happen overnight. But with Pluto in the ninth house, it is about this, this seriousness. It is about situations, experiences outside of yourself that can really rattle and change the foundation of what it is that you believe and think. With Pluto being in Aquarius, it's also about this connection to people, belief systems that change and force you to find like-minded people who also have the same sense of dedication that you may have to the beliefs, the morals, the way in which you choose to live your life. So Gemini, I think lifestyle changes, even people you deal with, disconnection from some people for some of you. 11th house, you have until, again, Neptune and Saturn move out. But Aries temporarily go back to where they were and then come back, all that stuff. Saturn and Neptune being in the 11th house for you is about your social network, but it's in Aries. And so for Aries, it's also about this starting something new or being in lead of something. It's not just about being around the group and seeing what everyone else thinks. It can be about you have to take charge. You're learning more about yourself. And it might happen through unexpected situations. It is, at some point, especially in July, Neptune and Saturn are going to be in retrograde. So those are really important things to consider and think about. Your node in Pisces in your 10th house, finally feeling aligned with your vision, finally feeling aligned with your career path. Even if you're not 100% sure what it looks like, there could be moments of, because remember, Gemini and Pisces square. So that North Node does at some point square your ascendant. It does at some point square that Uranus. And so for a lot of you, it can be, yeah, I'm not 100% where I want to be, but I know I don't want to be there, right? I know that I don't want to just be doing something because other people want me to. South Node in Virgo, 4th house. I'm only doing what I'm obligated to do. It is this, I now feel free to experiment, or I feel free now to really be more in alignment with where I'm supposed to be career-wise. So for Cancer, the good news for Cancer is that you have Jupiter moving into Cancer, okay? And Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. And so in the sign of Cancer, Jupiter is happy. It's like, I can expand here because I can pour into the things that I love, that I care about, and this natural orientation to be really connected to something that intrigues me and that I can grow and I can nurture this, and everybody can see this. And so for Cancer, though, this being for Cancer rising, this being in the 1st house of Cancer is really about this growth and people being able to see your growth and people being able to see your happiness and people like really allowing that authentic self to ring true. When we think of like Cancer energy, a lot of times we're like, well, Cancer has this kind of shell protectiveness, but Jupiter allows for you to expand, especially when we talk about, you know, money opportunities, growing in terms of how you want to be seen and taken seriously, because Saturn is going to be in Aries in your 10th house at some point. Neptune is going to be in Aries in your 10th house at some point. And so this faith, this leap of faith, and the belief in self, Aries, yes, it squares Cancer. So coming out of that shell, right? Learning to be honest and true to who you are, but at the same time, kind of allowing to see the journey that needs to happen in terms of how you show up in the world, 10th house. There is going to be a little bit of conflict there, but I think there with that Jupiter there, it allows for there to be expansion, allows there to be growth, especially with the North Node in Pisces in your 9th house, which is going to be about this discovery of what really is meaningful, what really matters to you, right? In a more collective sense. We know Cancer, what matters to you, because we can see it in your home environment and who you choose to care about. But Pisces allows for you to be more universal. And so though in terms of career and how you show up in the world and your reputation, all those things, Aries energy is there forcing you to kind of grow up in a way, forcing you to kind of deal with yourself, dealing with self. But also it is about undoing some of the mindset that you may have about yourself that hasn't been so great. Uranus is in Gemini in your 12th house. Okay. Once Uranus moves into a Gemini in July. And so shifts and change in thinking, really undoing some of those things, really having experiences where you have to really dive deeper into your unconscious and really start to make sense and learn more about the things that you haven't been so clear about. Right. And so those things can be concepts that show up. Even with look at the Pluto, Pluto will make that trine to Uranus, right? Pluto and Aquarius in your 8th house. A lot of work to be done, a lot of emotional work to be done, a lot of experiencing, a lot of experimenting with your deeper consciousness, the deeper things that you feel, the deeper things that in some way, shape, or form, you have to let go of these prescribed emotional connections, right? But I think that Jupiter in your 1st house is that opportunity, because it is saying expand, grow in how you show up in the world, grow and own it. Pluto and Aquarius, though, in your 8th house is like, there's a lot of work to be done here for you to not just attach yourself to the things that you feel are going to be the most comfortable, but attach yourself to the experiences that allow for you to grow and have a better mindset so you can feel more in line with what you feel and what you think, which I think can be a beautiful thing for Cancer people. Leo, all of the major transits are happening in the top part of your chart. We know in astrology, the bottom is the north and top is the south. Don't ask, that's what it is, okay? We know the 7th through 12th house are the house of others or experiences outside of ourselves, right? The bottom is more those personal foundational houses. And so what we have going on here, Leo, there's a lot of worldly things. You're not working as much with personal things. Of course, when your season comes down, the north, but Leo rising, like there's a lot of stuff outside of you that you're going to have to contend with. You know, Pluto being Aquarius in your 7th house, a lot of dramatic shifts in terms of relationship expectations, in terms of norms, in terms of what it is that you even perceive as the functionality of relationships, the entire way in which you may move about in relationships. It's a fundamental shift that's going to happen. Now, again, remember, we already know Pluto is a long cycle. That Pluto is going to be in your 7th house for a long time. But in the course of that, there are going to be different cycles of relationships and friendships, Aquarius, but also just boundaries that you may have to establish or break in terms of like understanding where your relationships truly are. And sometimes breaking free from something that does not yet serve you. Now, what you have going on, Uranus and Gemini in your 11th house, shifts in friendship dynamics, making new friends, new acquaintances, meeting new people who may have a different sense of understanding about the world than you may have. That also fits really well with your 9th house exploration, the 9th house of foreign lands, travel, things like that. You have Saturn and Neptune in the 9th house in Aries. This understanding of journey, of where am I trying to go? How does it align with my long-term goals? Saturn, Neptune, where have I always wanted to go that I didn't have a chance to, right? Maybe you're too much worried and concerned about people having to be within that, right? Having to be around others, but now there's an opportunity for you to step out and really figure it out for yourself. Jupiter is in Cancer in your 12th house, really opening up the avenues of more spiritual development, and especially when it comes to your emotional capabilities, the ability to understand what you're feeling, the ability to understand how what you're feeling connects to other people and other things and situations, connections to the past, right? Not all of them. I would say the fire signs most concerned with the present, it's Aries and Leo. Sag, wisdom, ancient wisdom. So Sag can care a little bit more about the past, but Jupiter being in Cancer in your 12th house can be gaining more wisdom about yourself, your spiritual abilities, gaining more information about your past, learning to put it in perspective spiritually, the things that you've experienced. Sometimes you're going so fast, you don't realize, like, slow down, pause, and really make sense of those things. It also connects to the fact that the North Node in Pisces will be in your 8th house. Transformation, a major opportunity to transform spiritually, to transform in ways in which it's not about sitting and waiting, but it's going to be about how are you developing different ways to fully come into yourself, understanding the ways in which your emotional development is contingent on your ability to understand the things that you don't always control, right? And everything in life that's entertaining is not the only thing, Leo rising. So those things pop up, those things there's an awareness there that you need to understand, and that needs to become a focal point for where you're going to move moving forward. Okay, so the biggest thing for the Virgo are the nodes, you know, the South Node moving into your 1st house, the North Node moving into your 7th house. And for Virgo, the nodes, okay, the South Node is your past. It is what you have been doing, what you have been, you know. And so the past idea of like this concept of self and serving self and working on yourself in some ways, but understanding more profoundly with the North Node in Pisces in 7th house, how the things that you've done working on yourself come full circle when you combine that with another person. And the North Node being in Pisces during the cycle can represent, you know, a fated relationship. Our relationships are not necessarily romantic. I don't talk about the 7th house purely as a romantic placement in many cases, but it, you know, primarily can be, but business associations, people that you're meant to meet. You already have Pisces on the cusp of your house, okay? And so we know Neptunian energy, that 7th house, it's like fated experiences, people you're meant to meet. Of course, we know when we're dealing with Pisces energy, there is no timeline. So you can't say, you know, you can try to do some timing, but there is no like blueprint to this. It is about the work that you've already done on yourself, Virgo rising, with the things that you've done, which you've worked towards, the way you've taken care of yourself. All those things are going to be indicated by the reflection of who you meet in that North Node in Pisces, really shining that mirror back at you. Okay, that 8th house, you're going to have Neptune and Saturn in Aries. Now, the thing about Neptune and Saturn in Aries in your 8th house, it is about this undercurrent of giving yourself more opportunity to be fully confident in your actions, being more direct in your actions. Virgo, you second guess things a lot, but Saturn being in Aries for that stint, it's really going to be about the development of the things that are serious to you that you attach to. So for you, Aries is not going to be about a time of impulsiveness. Aries is not going to be about a time of you just, some people it might be, but for you within your 8th house, it is the things that are really intricately a part of you, the emotions that you feel, the experiences that you have that have deeper connections. Through Saturn and Aries, it's about that courage. It's about now taking that leap. It's about understanding how those things have a greater sense of purpose in your life. And with Neptune being in Aries, you've had Neptune in Pisces for a while. With Neptune in Aries, it is about also this belief and this ability to just like take a leap. And for Virgo, the leap looks very different. The leap looks like, I'm going to take 2 steps instead of 5. That's fine. That's who you are. The Virgo rising, it's like, I'm going to take a few steps and then take a few steps back. So especially when it goes in retrograde, July, it's going to be in retrograde. Those planets are going to be in retrograde. So you might feel like, oh, I came far, but now I'm going back. What do I do? But it is about that it's about trying it, dipping your toe in the sand, dipping your toe in the water. Let me check the temperature a little bit because I'm going to have to go. I'm going to have to get things done. I'm going to have to move forward in some ways. Now, again, with it being your 8th house, it is deep attachments, experiences that you've had that you have awoken. Think about it like that. Pluto is going to be in the 6th house in Aquarius. As we know, Pluto being Aquarius for 6th house, the best thing for Virgo risings is health, focusing on your health, being obsessive about your health. But with Aquarius energy, it's about innovation. It is about trying new things. Hey, you tried that diet back in 2016, didn't work. It's now 2025. What are you going to do? Stop doing it, right? Stop doing the things that have not worked for you, Virgo. And you know how to do that mostly, but it is about, sometimes Virgo thinks the regimen, I just got to keep doing it. But with Pluto being in retrograde in July, it also could be revisiting certain things, but definitely continue to take care of your health, trying new things, responding to things, trying it out until you see what works, at the end of the day. Uranus is in Gemini, your 10th house, Virgo rising, some change in terms of your your career, a new opportunity, something unexpected that's to do with learning, communication, has to do with your connection to people. So for some people, if you're in media or writing or something like that, Uranus in Gemini, Uranus is also ruler of technology. So some opportunity or situation that changes in your career, changes your direction. Maybe you go back to school. You have to go back to learn something. You're taking new classes to further yourself in terms of your career or something like that. But it's Uranus, so it's unexpected. It's an opportunity or something that requires you to change. You might be working in a different industry. You might have a side job. You might do something in technology, right? But also keeping in mind that Jupiter is in Cancer in your 11th house, which can represent a good fortune with friends, associations, but people that you have a closeness to or connection to, people that are similar to you, having a bigger network of people, if you are more interested. So Jupiter being in your 11th house can also represent a bigger connection, getting connections, getting favor. Or think of the 11th house as traditionally a place of business, of commerce, of where, you could gain through your influences. You could gain, and especially Jupiter being in this 11th house can be fortune, so it could be a fortune opportunity. Again, with Cancer energy, it's people who you're familiar with, people who are like you. There's some similarity, there's some commonality. Okay, you can benefit greatly from that at that time. Libra. All right, so Libra, what you're going to have going on is kind of what Virgo had going on for a while with Saturn and Neptune and Pisces in their 7th house. You're going to have Neptune and Saturn in Aries in that 7th house for a little bit. And so for you, it is around long-term understandings of self, long-term understandings of the things that you truly want out of relationships, prioritizing yourself. If you have not prioritized yourself for a while, it's starting to understand who you are in these relationship dynamics. Neptune and Aries. It is about also this idealism of like where you stand in relationships. Who you are is a reflection of these relationships that you have, but you're also in some way taking a new chance. It can be you have been in a long-term relationship for a while. Now you have to learn how to not be in one, and you're really understanding who you are, and you're starting to understand a little bit more around the type of life you want. We talk a lot about reality. Reality is important, right? I don't think people should be delusional. But with Neptune, it can also be this ideal. Like, what is the ideal relationship for me? But if it's conjunct Saturn, it is about idealism and realism at the same time. So for Libra rising, it is around understanding those two things, those lessons coming to fruition. And again, it doesn't always have to just be this romantic situation. It also can be business, best friend, one-to-one those interactions with people, of really understanding who you are in relationships. Are you clear on who you are? Do you need to change the way you show up in those relationships with other people, right? You're going to have a lot going on in terms of like also understanding your own mental health and awareness, health in terms of Neptune and Pisces in the 6th house, doing things for yourself that make you feel a greater sense of connection to your higher self, your higher being. You might be a person, I work out every day, but do you also make sure that you feel good spiritually? Do you make sure that you are balanced mentally, right? And again, working out can help your mental health for many people as well. That South Node being in Virgo in the 12th house is you've already done these regimented things, this overthinking, these experiences of trying to really make sense of how you can better serve people and others. But with Neptune being North Node in Pisces in the 6th house, it is about more of the gaining perspective of the different ways in which your daily life can uplift you, okay? Not just keep doing the things behind the scenes, keep doing the things that are small, that don't really add up to the things that you really need in order to feel like you have a greater sense of the role that you're playing in life, but also the spiritual journey that you may be on, right? This kind of divine purpose of like, where we talk about purpose, we're also talking about the fact you have Uranus in Gemini, 9th house, learning a lot, going on an unexpected learning journey, being pivoted back to something, having to understand more, being disrupted, something disrupted in some way, shape, or form, so that you can learn more, so that you can feel that you are curious about the world. Sometimes we don't become curious about stuff until something happens and we're like, wait a minute, I don't know everything I thought I knew. So really, Uranus in the 9th house, also some people can be exposed to more radical ideas, being exposed more to things that are more jarring, more spontaneous types of information that is uncommon. Pluto being in Aquarius, though, in your 5th house, represents a period of time of really starting to get more fixated on a hobby or interest that you have. Pluto can represent obsession, it can represent transformation, it can represent a lot of things. I have a video about Pluto, but with Aquarius, remember Aquarius represents this dabbling. It is experimentation, invention, technology. So for people that have any type of interest in that, this can be the best time. Actually, it's going to be a cycle of a long time. Pluto's a very long time. Very, very, we know that. So this is the best time to do it. Like what you do now can set the future for 10, 15, 20 years from now. So like really understanding that Pluto and Aquarius energy in your 5th house, you don't have to do anything about it today or tomorrow. It's going to be there for a while. But that is what can show up with that. And of course, Pluto is making that trine to Uranus, especially in July. So if you're a Scorpio rising, what can you expect for 2025, or at least for part of it when we look at where the major planetary shifts will occur? So for Scorpio risings, you're going to see Saturn and Neptune in your 6th house in the sign of Aries. So what's interesting about that is going to be there's some type of shift in your day-to-day life, in your day-to-day activities, but it's going to likely require you to take a leap of faith. It may require you to have to be reactive, responsive to something. And as a Scorpio rising, you are used to doing things in a way that really allows for you to kind of be more stationary, to be more patient, especially if we consider the modern ruler of Scorpio, which is Pluto. But we know Mars is also your co-ruler. So you're going to have some connection to this Aries energy. But it's unlike the kind of slower, methodical approach. There is more expansion this year. 6th house, it's going to require there to be a little bit of activity and understanding the things that have to get done, being more reactive, responsive, not waiting as much on things to happen around you, but really making sure that you're striking while the iron is hot. We also want to look at the fact that you're going to have Uranus when Uranus moves into Gemini, it's going to be your 8th house. A lot of transformation in terms of your deeper emotional senses. You may kind of have to redefine some things for yourself. There may be sudden shifts in the way that you attach to people. There may be sudden shifts in terms of who invests in you. We know the 8th house can also represent debt, but it also represent joint assets, inheritance, things like that. So Uranus being in Gemini could mean that there are unseen situations that allow for you to gain from people giving you an idea, investing in you. We look at Gemini energy as well, sometimes representing the siblings. So for some people, especially if this lines up with other things in your chart, there could be some financial gains within this, within the 8th house, but it's attached to other people. So for Scorpio, it is not so much in the ideas are just coming from you, but the money or the unexpected turn of events that you have to, here's what I'm trying to say. Whatever happens, it's almost like it's unexpected. It could be sudden, but it involves other people's ideas. It involves you having to communicate, right? So it's not just a solo mission. So a lot of you may have some 8th house energy, a connection with someone else, something that you have to commit to, but it's unexpected. For some people, it can be an unexpected situation in terms of romance or relationships or joining assets with a partner because something happened, or all of a sudden you now have an additional income because something happened and someone has passed something on to you. The thing about Uranus, though, remember Uranus and Gemini energy is not very stationary. It's very much about the ideas. It's very much about, spreading this sense of, having some freedom as well. So freedom with your ideas, freedom of how to explore the things that you are connected to can be themes. Jupiter being in Cancer in the 9th house, a lot of expansion, being more open to certain ideas, being more open to things that may require you to have to go back to your roots, to explore, to experience things that you forgot were a part of you. This is a great time, opportunity for some people as well. Like if you have any sense of sort of connection to want to understand the truth about where you come from or your roots or, knowledge, things like that, Jupiter and Cancer can be a great time to do those things. It is not so much energy in which you are learning some vast thing that's disconnected from you. It is energy in which Jupiter and Cancer, it is about you having abundance in the area that allows for there to be a greater sense of acquiring wisdom through the experiences that you allow yourself to have. Also being more open in terms of the connections that you have with people. They can be unforeseen connections. Remember, we talked about Jupiter and Gemini being your 8th house. Jupiter is at home in the 9th house. So for you, and Jupiter in Cancer in general, we know is an exalted placement. So this is really beneficial for those of you in terms of seeking to expand your experiences, seeking to break free from certain bonds, and really allowing yourself to experience new things. But they're going to be things that have some type of emotional connection to it. An example could be a person who, let's say your parents are from a certain country, but you've never visited that country, returning, your parents want to return or you go to visit, you're going to have a greater spiritual experience. You're going to have a greater sense of connection during this time when you reconnect with your roots and where you come from and things like that. All right. Pluto being Aquarius in the 4th house, for a long time for Scorpio, it is about changing. For Scorpio, there's a lot going on with Scorpio risings. You're learning how to attach to things by opening up more, by not just trusting just what you feel. There's nothing wrong with that, but by opening up more lines of communication. Because not only do you have Uranus and Gemini in the 8th house, but you also will have Pluto and Aquarius in the 4th house. So change, dramatic change, shifts, dynamics, family dynamics may change and shift because of a new addition, perhaps, of the family. Aquarius can represent groups, but also could be Pluto and Aquarius represents a shift that requires us to have a different ideology, a different understanding of what family means, a different understanding of the dynamics of the family, who lives where, who lives with who, all those different things. So you may be, if you're a family where you're like, oh, we've been really traditional for the past 30 years, like there could be a shift in that. There can be something that stands out in terms of who people in your family decide to marry. There can be, depending on what else is happening in your chart, it can be a shift in the dynamics. It could be a divorce. It could be a split. It could be, someone having to return back home for some way to help take care of other people or something in that regard. But remember, Pluto brings dramatic shifts and dynamics. And by the end of Pluto's shift, you don't even recognize what it is anymore, for good or bad. So just keeping that in mind there. The nodes will be in your 5th and your 11th houses, which is important for your sense of, creativity. North Node being in Pisces in the 5th house, there is no pressure for you to, design something and perfect something. For Scorpio risings, I don't see this being a year of a lot of grand pressure. Now, again, to know this fully, you would have to look at your natal chart, your solar return. As I always say, all the charts are layers on the natal chart. So that's always what's going to be, the primary focus. But when we look at the North Node being in your 5th house, it is about reconnecting with something that brings you joy. When we look at you've been serving a lot of people for a while. South Node in Virgo, 11th house. And serving other people could be serving your community. It could be giving a lot to a group that you're a part of, giving a lot to your friends, giving a lot of your time. But now it's an opportunity for you to also give some time to yourself without the added pressure of having to produce some type of result. Sagittarius. Okay, for Sagittarius risings this year, we want to look at where the major planetary shifts are happening. Of course, I've been starting with most of these talking about Saturn and Neptune. I think Saturn and Neptune is really exciting, especially Neptune. Neptune and Pisces. I'm excited for Neptune to move into Aries, but again, it's temporary because it doesn't fully go into their long term until January 2026. So as we know, the planets will do a dance between signs until it moves long term into a sign. But Neptune has been in Pisces for a long time, and it has caused a lot of delusion. It caused a lot of, people not really facing reality, people being kind of, shape-shifting, not really knowing where they are. Neptune in Pisces in rulership. But again, that means it's creating all these aspects to other things and other people and other planets. And so it can cause a kind of atmosphere of people not knowing who they are, people trying to adapt and morph into something, or people being in some way in their imagination. Neptune being in Aries requires a different level of energy. It requires us to idealize what we want and actually go for it. Saturn being in Aries can help because Saturn is about reality. So Saturn conjunct Neptune is, yeah, go for what you want, but have that reality. It's very similar to those of us who have Neptune and Capricorn as a placement. So with that, it being in your 5th house, it is about this rediscovering of the things that you need to do in order to stay centered. Sagittarius energy can be so roaming around to try to fulfill all these other roles they have, all this other energy that you feel you have to apply yourself to. But when you put it in the 5th house, it is allowing you to you're giving yourself permission to really dive into the things that really matter to you. You're doing things, and it can sometimes feel like, but I'm not serving the collective. I'm not doing something on a grand mass scale. But for Sagittarius risings, I think it is about the time. It is about the time of you redefining what you need for you as well. In order to really channel your purpose, sometimes you have to go in silo and really, work out the kinks of the things that you are working towards. And Sagittarius energy, when misapplied, as we know, can be very much impulsive. It can be rash. It can say, I'm working on the behalf of everything for everybody else because of this idealism. But with the 5th house, it allows you to reconnect with your confidence in who you are. And so sometimes you feel like you're forgetting who you are because you have to carry this big weight on your shoulders. And for Sag, there's a lot of pressure. Virgo is pressure. Virgo squares, but Virgo and Sag both like to help, and Pisces likes to help. But I think the difference is with Virgo, it's this task, it's this practical help, right? But with Sag, you put so much on your shoulders of like, I'm going to change this person. They just need more faith. They just need somebody to be their mentor. But with the 5th house, the Neptune and Saturn being there, you're called to do something that relates to something you're good at. You're called to do something that you may feel a sense of joy in. Now, again, that will shift and that will change because again, Saturn is Neptune, all that, it's going to go back into their placements. It's going to go back in Pisces for a little bit until it's full time. Uranus in Gemini for the 7th house, for the Sag rising, Uranus in Gemini in the 7th house denotes change in terms of your communication, in terms of relationships, shifts, new ideas, new approaches to how you view relationships. Maybe, you are someone that is becoming a little bit more open in the way in which you approach your communication with people. Again, we're talking about Uranus at the 0, whatever degree it's at. Remember, it is eventually going to be it is eventually going to be in opposition to your ascendant. And so this concept of you needing to, you feel intrigued and you need to feel like really adventurous. But the Gemini approach to wanting things to be, information, communication, this more curiosity, this more like, we don't have to solve it all right now. Whereas Sag energy can be about, let's solve it all. Let's do it right now. I'm in the mood. Like Sag is very much that fire. Okay. But when you have Uranus and Gemini, it is about this more entertaining thoughts, entertaining ideas. You're not yet committing to something, but you are becoming a little bit more, you're becoming a little bit more less attached to a certain concept or idea and becoming a little bit more experimental in ways in which things can look. Your communication, again, will shift as well, perhaps for many of you, because Pluto will be in Aquarius in your 3rd house of communication. And so really there's a lot of conscious effort. You might feel really influenced by the ideas of society at this time, or whatever group in society you feel you're a part of. Pluto, we know, can be quite obsessive. Pluto in Aquarius. So for some of you, again, when we talk about the Uranus making that trine to Pluto, and if it's between your 3rd and your 7th houses, a lot of you, you're changing groups, you're changing ideas. The people around you may be influencing your ideas, about relationships, about partnerships. Your partnership can be influencing the things that you deal with on a daily basis. So for a lot of Sag risings, it's like, yes, it's important to stay your ground about the things that matter to you, the things that are intentional. Because with all the air energy, you can sometimes get thrown off track. So I don't just want to say that Uranus and Gemini in your 7th house is a positive, because it can sometimes cause issues where you're trying to really define where you don't want to get stuck and not go on your own journey, which we know Sag is about because of the ideas of others, but you are going to be heavily influenced by the ideas and concepts and consumed a little bit, especially with Pluto in that 3rd. Now, when we look also at where Jupiter will be, Jupiter in Cancer will be in the 8th house. The expansion of your deeper feelings, your deeper motivations, understanding things more from a root. Where did this come from? And but not being scared. Jupiter in Cancer in the 8th house energy is not about being scared of where your past is, where you came from. You know, sometimes you can see planets in the 8th house and be like, whoa, too deep, right? Very deep, intense. But with Jupiter, it's about this open awareness. It's like, let's get it out. Let's get it out. Let's talk about it. Let's explore what we're feeling. Let's try to resolve what we're feeling. Let's try to feel this in a way that can help us move forward instead of us moving backward. And so Jupiter being in the 8th house can be helpful for people in terms of money, finances, and blending finances with people that are from your family or, you know, somehow benefiting financially. You know, we talk about the Cancer energy also with the mother side of the family. The mother side of the family, something of that nature. Okay, the nodes for you are going to be in the 4th and the 10th house. So the node being in Pisces in the 4th house, it's about healing. It's about taking care of home. That's why I said for Sag risings, I think it's going to be a very interesting year of healing, of working on oneself, of developing a greater sense of, you know, where you stand with certain people in your life. There might be some themes about family, but also some things about relationships. And I also talk about the family. North node being in Pisces in the 4th house for you, it is a process. It is going to be something that does not happen overnight. But if you look at where your attention has been, Virgo in the 10th house, right? Virgo South Node, putting a lot of attention and detail to your career, to the things that matter to you. But in the 4th house, it could be things resurfacing. Again, you have Jupiter and Cancer in the 8th house for a bit. It's things resurfacing. It's experiences that require you to have grace. You may at this time you let go of certain things that maybe you've been holding on to for a long time. That way you can heal and really open up the avenues of communication with the people in your life that you need to really, you know, create stronger bonds with. All right, Capricorn risings. Okay, so for Capricorn rising, this year is one in which you have the opportunity to really understand the ways in which the daily occurrences and things that you are experiencing provide you a greater sense of structure or need to be shifted, need to be changed. And I talk about change because you have Uranus and Gemini in that 6th house. So what you study, your communication style, something is going to change within this year. When Uranus goes into Gemini, and I put the list or the link down below of the dates of these different transits, but with Uranus being in Gemini in the 6th house, there is an opportunity to gain a greater sense of where in your life do you need to shift and change your thought process. You've been doing things a certain way. We know Capricorn rising, it can work for you. But sometimes things don't work the way in which we need them to. And so there's a greater sense of like innovation that can happen during this time. You also might be influenced by other people's lifestyles, how they work with things. Finances might likely change as well for Capricorn risings, Pluto and Aquarius. But again, this is a long haul. So some people have already started to feel Pluto in Aquarius's shift. They've already felt it in their chart. But remember, this is a long stretch of time where by the end of Pluto's cycle, something is either going to be still left standing or not standing at all, for good or bad. So Pluto being in the 2nd house is about this. There's a great sense of transformation for many people. A shift, a dynamic shift in which the way in which you make money, the way in which you approach money is going to be significantly different. For some people, it could be adding on jobs, adding on opportunities that are going to help you in the long term. Pluto and Aquarius, again, we deal with things that can be technology or things that can be revolutionary. We could also be dealing with Aquarius with juggling many things. With Pluto being in the 2nd house, it's always about the sense of possessiveness and really making sure that you are aware of the things that you own and that you have. Also, remember, Pluto can be about fear, it can cause some fear. So it's also about like paying things off, making sure that you are very settled in the way in which you are dealing with your personal finances. With the 4th house, you're going to have Saturn and Neptune there at some point. Again, it's going to move out. We know how the planets dance a little bit. And again, I'm going to put it down below the transits to expect. But when that 4th house hits, when that Saturn and Neptune and Aries hits that 4th house, for some people, it can be this greater sense of like realization about the way in which you want to move about with your family, the healing process. But the difference with the healing process is not going to be the same that I said for the 2 signs back. For you, it is about a journey and it's actually going to be an action. We think of Aries energy, it is direction, it is action. And so because of the things happening within the family dynamic, it can influence you to either act or push back. Capricorn is your rising, so that's squaring. That's the energy is going to be squaring your Capricorn rising. So feeling like you're responsible for something, but also having to put yourself first, but in some way, shape, or form, feeling like you have to be the one to step up. But when you're stepping up, you also have to take into consideration that there's a lot of things happening that require you to gain a greater sense of the different relationships that you have with the people around you. So caretaking can be thematic for some people. There's a lot of families, a lot of people going on. There's a lot of people taken care of with you guys, Capricorn risings, because you have the North Node in the third house. The third house we know can be siblings, neighbors, people around us. And you have Jupiter in Cancer in the seventh house of relationships. And so Jupiter and Cancer in the seventh house can also be like an expansion of a relationship that maybe has already been established. It could be getting into a better groove with somebody within your, your immediate surroundings, your relationships, healing your relationships, understanding the ways in which you have knowledge. Think of Jupiter. You've gained knowledge about the relationships that you have with other people. A lot of us are held back in our romantic relationships because of our family life. Like, think about the way in which we were introduced to emotions and feelings and the way we saw people in our family deal with relationships, and how many people try to mimic that in their adult life. And like, well, I don't understand why my relationship won't work, because you can't always model your relationships off of other people, even if they had a positive one, because people are different and different times require different things, clearly. So with you fourth house Aries people, with all this energy happening in your fourth house, it is about some people even breaking free from the family, having to really care and nurture for yourself. Some people, it is nurturing more your personal relationships, your romantic relationships with that Jupiter and Cancer. Nodes being in the third and the ninth house. So we're dealing with knowledge. We're dealing with access to knowledge. With North Node being in Pisces in the third house, it is about this greater sense of, mental creativity, outlets, allowing yourself to have outlets that give you a greater sense of understanding the things that you're interested in. When we talk about the South Node in Virgo in the ninth house, you have been on a path, perhaps you've been working towards something, you have been doing higher learning, things like that. But without creativity and allowing your mind to have creative outlets, the ninth house is a little bit more pressure. You have to perform. Like, ninth house, we know, can be the messenger. The ninth house is the mentor. The ninth house is the teacher. But with the third house, it's also about allowing yourself to learn. It is about also learning, like with Pisces energy, like you're learning, you're teaching yourself how to learn the things that cannot be mastered overnight, the things that require more of your yielding to the more spiritual lessons, the divine lessons, the more universalism of life, and those types of communication that you may have with people around you, learning to be kinder to people, or accepting kindness, or accepting the types of people that you want in your life that kind of speak that life into you. We also look at the fact that South Node being in Virgo and all that Virgo energy that will be in your ninth house when Virgo season happens, but it's still about you already are on the path of learning the things that you need to learn. So you are doing the work. It's like you're literally doing the work, but that North Node in third house wants to remind you to stay grounded in learning the things you need to learn in order to be spiritually evolved. I'm gonna like Aquarius. Okay, Aquarius. All right, so for the Aquariuses, all right, you already know Pluto is in your first house. Okay, Pluto being in the first house for Aquarius risings is really going to be about, and we're using whole sense right now, it's really going to be about like this transformation of self and identity in the way in which you show up in the world. The different ways in which you are experimenting perhaps with yourself, with your appearance, with your look, or even just in the way in which you identify. Pluto being in that first house for a long stretch of time, it does mean that there requires a greater sense of you to yield to the things that don't really fit within the mold of who you are. Experimenting a little bit more with that, releasing things that you feel are the old you, reinventing yourself are themes for Aquarius risings, right? Reinventing yourself, understanding who you are in relation to the people that are around you can be themes for Aquarius risings. Aquarius risings, you're also going to be dealing with like some type of situation that you gain from or experience monetarily. The North Node being in the second house, an opportunity for you to work towards something you dream of. And it does not have to mean every dream you've ever had in your life, but it could be, you know what, I want a pool. I don't know. I want to move to this area. I want to start saving for this. I want to have this. I want to, remember, the second house is about what you have. It's about your personal resources. So even though Pisces is in there, we know Pisces doesn't really care as much about those objects and the money, things like that. North Node there can represent attaining, moving towards something you've always wanted, because some of you maybe already be taken care of from the ways in which other people have, you've worked for something. You and somebody else have worked towards something. Why am I saying that? The South Node in Virgo, the South Node being in Virgo in your eighth house. And again, especially once we look, I would say towards Virgo season, you're going to get more of that acknowledgement, right? Of, okay, we have these things, or somebody gave me this, but it's not really what I want. It's like when someone gives you something, but you really want to work for it on your own because it's what you attach yourself to. Those are themes for you Aquarius risings as well, because Jupiter is in your sixth house. So the things that you work towards your daily life have to fit the things in which you have experience about. You're gaining the experience, your abundance, Like it's like your daily life, you want to be able to experience the things that you've worked towards. Jupiter being in Cancer, I've already said in the earlier signs, it's exalted, right? So it works really well here. But with Jupiter being in your 6th house, you have the opportunity to expand more in the ways in which you interact with your daily life. What are you nurturing? What are you pouring into? It's going to make a direct trine to the North Node in the 2nd house. Now, when we look at the 3rd house, you have Saturn and Neptune in Aries. It's about limiting negative beliefs, limiting things from people and things in situations that don't serve you. Saturn in Aries in the 3rd house, it's like taking something more seriously that is uniquely for you. Neptune in Aries, like really, envisioning something that gives you a greater sense of clarity in what it is that you think, the things that you know, the things that you want to focus on, the things that you want to study, the thing, you have an idea and you want to just do it. You have an idea, you have a vision, and you're not ready yet to release it perhaps, but you are in deep thought about something that is uniquely for you, something that helps you really identify and separate yourself from other people. We know Aquarius risings can do that quite well, but when we look at the Aries energy, it's about the independence. And with Saturn being in Aries in the 3rd house, it's like going on a journey by yourself that you have to grow from, that you have to in some way embody. Neptune and Aries in your 3rd house, it is about you idealizing the things that matter to you. It is not about Aquarius. It could be hard. Now, Aries energy and Aquarius energy does sextile in some degree. But it's Aquarius is the group, right? Y'all both are expressive. You're both, can be independent, but Aquarius is the group, the collective. I'm looking out for the collective, right? I have to share this with the collective, but Aries energy is about self. It's like, yep, I'm going to do for me, and the collective, anyone else can follow me, right? It's not the same consciousness, that intentionality of the Aquarius energy. So for many of you, it could be independent thought, but having to be courageous enough to not always have people in your ear saying, yeah, you're right, but really learn to trust yourself and your mindset around those things. You have Uranus and Gemini in the 5th house this year. Once that moves over, it's about really innovation, creativity, giving yourself those creative outlets. A lot of the planetary shifts, the major shifts that will occur this year are going to be in the northern part of your chart. That's 1 through 6. That's the foundational houses, personal change. It is about really paying attention to your personal life, right? Of course, all the other signs are going to travel through your 7th through 12th house, but a lot of the outer planets and the changes, Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, and Saturn, they're going to be in Pluto. It's in the bottom part of your chart. So your personal life, paying attention to the things that are personal of nature. It does not mean you ignore the greater outer things, but it does mean this is a great time for you to really hone in on those things that are individual pursuits for you, and the things that really matter to your life as, to you. Really working on different areas of your life and not feeling so distracted by the demands of the 10th house or the obligations of the 11th house, in terms of social outings or things like that. Your nodes are in the 2nd and 8th houses. Those are money activities happening, as I've said before. Pisces. All right, so for the Pisces rising person, this is a year that has a lot to do with you coming into your own, but it also is going to be you revitalizing certain areas of your life that you didn't know needed more attention. And when I talk about attention, the first thing I want to start with is the money. The 2nd house, you have Saturn in Aries and Neptune in Aries are going to be in your 2nd house. Now, again, at some point, those planets are going to be retrograde, so there's going to be some retrograde activity happening. But with Neptune and Saturn together, this is about reality. It's about picturing things. It's about really moving into what it is that you've started. Pisces, it's Saturn and Neptune have been in Pisces, right? But so with that, you have felt in alignment. You might have been going with your own flow. Aries energy is not about going with the flow. Aries energy is about now jumpstarting something. How are you now allowing yourself to gain sustainability? So if you've been working on something for a while, the Saturn and the Neptune moving into your 2nd house in Aries, is this time to launch? It is this time to be a little bit more mature in the way in which you approach situations. Mature, but also at the same time, you have to have that confidence and that ability to say, I can get this done. This is going to move. Especially be helpful for a lot of you during July season, because in July, during Leo season, you'll have the Leo energy in your 6th house of work. So for a lot of you, that could be a great time as well, literally looking at those months of summer months. When we look also at your 4th house, you're going to have Uranus and Gemini in your 4th house. Changes dynamics to the family structure that can add on. For some people, unexpected, pregnancies, unexpected things happening within the family. We talk about Gemini being siblings. We talk about Gemini being brothers. You know, so when we look at Uranus in the 4th house in Gemini, it can represent some themes there requiring you to just pay attention to those themes in terms of other, you know, your family dynamics, adding to your family. Jupiter will be in Cancer in the 5th house. I wouldn't be surprised if there's Pisces risings where like siblings or family or there's something with kids happening. I also say kids because Jupiter, we know, can represent kids. Some people go in astrology by, no, Jupiter is just your spouse. Some people say Jupiter can represent your children. The theme of Jupiter is expansion. So I think in many ways, I get the tie into both of them. And again, it depends on what you want to follow. But when we look at Jupiter being your 5th house is the house that deals with a lot of things, but children is there as well. Jupiter in Cancer, right? We know Jupiter is exalted there. So pregnancy, children, somebody expecting, you know, a baby, adding to the family dynamic. And maybe for some people could be they're getting married to someone that has children. Whatever the case may be, your family dynamic and structure may be getting a little bit of a different lens this year to something changing within those dynamics, something with family, kids, and those different things. Now with your, with Pluto is right now, it's in Aquarius in your 12th house. That's not much different. But again, what's going to happen is once Uranus moves into Gemini, it's going to be trining Pluto, that 4th and that 12th house. Pluto being in Aquarius in your 12th house can be that evolution of your understanding of how you are connected to other people around you. But it's like, how do you allow yourself to be connected to other people without feeling a greater sense of more things you have to do? Pluto in Aquarius in the 12th house is more about you connecting more on an unconscious level. It is more about your commitment to humanity. It's more about your commitment. So Pisces, a lot of times it's like, you could be really insular, you could be really in your own mind, but Pluto in Aquarius requires you to not just be about yourself, not just be about your own mind. It's really going to be about how you are gaining, how do you get stronger when you are thinking about the ways in which you contribute to a society, you contribute to a group. You are someone, and it's like really, you know, for some people it could be really difficult if you felt loneliness trying to understand that pain and understand what that means. But with Pluto in Aquarius, you're going to go through this evolution of understanding how you contribute, how you are in some way connected to the lives of other people. Again, especially for people that are on a spiritual path, those can be themes that really show up. You have North Node in Pisces, obviously in the 1st house. That node, 1st and 7th house, people, relationships, are themes for you. 1st house, North Node in Pisces in that 1st house. It is about idealizing yourself. It is about understanding yourself, healing yourself. It is about pure acceptance of who you are without trying to be something that you're not. And I also think that connects to that 12th house, that change, that understanding of who you are doesn't have to be a mold of what other people need you to be. Then across from that, of course, the South Node is in Virgo in the 7th house. You spent a lot of time working on your relationships or fixing a certain particular relationship with someone, trying to idealize it. But with the North Node being in the 1st house, it becomes more about you becoming whole, you healing, you being confident in the ways in which you show up in the world, and understanding that your relationships that you've worked on with other people are certain things are important. But at the end of the day, with the North Node, it wants you to attain to now, how do you heal and work on the relationship with yourself?